Hello, hi everyone. Today we will continue to go over a question from the RC question bank. First, our second question today mainly concerns the configuration of a software repository. Actually, this is the same as the second question in the 20 CSA exam, right? The content is the same, but the specific operations we need to perform are different. Because in RCISIC, at the beginning, we are actually just working with a single virtual machine, basically manually editing our repo file and configuring the software repository, and that's it. But in the second question of our RCE, we are working with many virtual machines. Obviously, we can't configure them one by one here, right? So what do? We use Ansible as a tool, write a playbook, and then have it configure the software repository for all of them at once. So the main difference here is the configuration method. The approach is different, but the content is the same. We're standardizing the repository. Next, let's first take a look at our configuration method. So what do we need to pay attention to here? You must make sure to complete all the verification steps in the first question and confirm that there are no issues. Every single step must be correct before moving on to the second question, because if there are problems in the earlier steps, many of the following questions will actually be affected. You must make sure that all the verification steps in the first question are correct before you start, right? Otherwise, you should reinitialize the environment. All right, so here, first of all, what we have here is once there's no problem with the content, let's take a closer look at the requirements for this question. Actually, it's just about software repositories, right? Here it mentions two software repositories and we need to configure both of them. The only difference is their names, right? These two software repositories are basically the same except for their names. The links are different, right? And also, as you can see here, the key being used is the same. The key is actually the same one. So the links are different, the names are different, just change those and that's it. So for this question, you can actually write one first. After you finish writing one, you can just copy it and then modify the content for the second one. This way, it's relatively more convenient. All right, so here, let's take a closer look at how to solve this problem. First, we'll remotely connect to our environment and then get started. Let's begin our configuration. Okay, before we start configuring, there's an important point I need to emphasize to everyone, which is about our...
Let's pause for a short announcement. Friends, if you're currently preparing for this ITification exam, or if you've been studying for a while but don't feel your preparation is very efficient, this is something you shouldn't miss. Our team has been focused on its certification dumps for 16 years, doing one thing consistently, organizing the most up-to-date, most exam accurate, and easiest to use dumps to help candidates pass their exams more efficiently. Our dumps closely follow official exam updates. They are stable, highly accurate, and well aligned with real exam questions, allowing you to prepare with more confidence while spending less time. If you'd like to get the dumps for this exam and pass the certification faster, you can contact us directly via WhatsApp or YouTube private messages. We're happy to explain the latest update dates, dump stability, exam policies in different countries, as well as any current purchase discounts. Everything is clear and transparent before you decide. We also place great importance on payment security and privacy protection. The entire purchasing process is simple and secure, with no unnecessary data collection. Your personal information and privacy are fully protected. In addition, we provide 24/7 consultation and after-sales support. Whether you're just getting started or running into issues right before the exam, our support team will patiently and professionally help you analyze and solve problems. You're never preparing alone. Beyond this specific exam, our dumps cover almost all major IT certification tracks. If you plan to pursue other IT certifications in the future, feel free to reach out anytime. We'll give recommendations based on your goals.
The name of the playbook must be exactly the same as what's required in the question. Absolutely the same, otherwise you'll get 0 points. Because after you finish the exam, they will check. They will verify your playbook, right? They'll check your playbook. They'll look for your playbook in your system, right? If you got the name wrong, they won't even be able to find your playbook. So that's definitely going to be 0 points, right? So everyone really needs to pay attention to this. Make sure not to get the name wrong, double check it carefully. All right, next, let's take a look at how to configure it specifically. Here, I recommend that everyone just stay in this directory in our environment. It's more convenient. Why? Because when you edit files later, I usually do it right in this directory. If you're in another directory, the file paths you have to write will be much longer, right? Because right now we're in the home bragged Ansible directory, right? The file that the assignment requires is actually in this path, and then you add our sample point. Repom dash, right, dash. IPO.yml. You can't get this name wrong. Of course, it still depends on the assignment. If the assignment specifies a name, just use that name. All right, so let's edit it here. So after we enter our file, what's next? The main thing is, before writing the specific tasks, what do we need to specify? First, we need to specify which host we're working with. The assignment requires us to configure all the virtual machines, right? So actually, there's no need to choose here, right? In the first question in our inventory file, we actually wrote a lot of groups, didn't we? But here it's actually not necessary. For this question, we need to configure the software repository for all hosts because it involves subsequent software installation. So here, what do we actually need to do? We just need to write all. That's enough, right? We want all the hosts to be able to do this. Install the software, and that's it. Next, let's write out the specific steps. The software repository module, which is our module here, there's something you need to pay attention to with this module. After you finish writing it, be sure to pay attention to indentation. Indentation is very important. Actually, 2 spaces for indentation is the most suitable. It looks better that way. Of course, if you want to use 4 spaces, that's fine too, right? But 2 spaces are recommended, 2 spaces. And here, when we start writing the content, it includes the file name, as well as our description, the description. As for the description, it's also provided in the question. Why don't we write it here? Because all of this can actually be copied. Yes, it can all be copied. So during the exam, there's really no need to write so much because if you write too much, first, it wastes time. Second, you're likely to make mistakes, especially if the link is too long, right? If you get even 1 letter wrong, it won't work. So you really need to pay attention to these details here. So here, first of all, this K here can also be copied. Yes, it's also handwritten at first. Actually, you just need to change GPT check and set enable to yes, right? As for the other content, from file name and description to base URL and RK, all of these can be directly copied from the question. So here, let's just go ahead and copy them. First, let's compare this file. This is basically the name of our software repository, the name of the software repository. Let's copy it. As for the description, it doesn't really serve any practical purpose, but if the question requires it, you must write it. So everyone should mainly pay attention to the requirements in the question. In reality, what's actually useful here is just the description, or rather the base URL, right? That's it. Check and enable. Because we've actually written this before, right? I've also talked to you about some related content. Actually, just these few are enough. But if the question requires you to write all of them, even if they're not useful, you still have to write them. If you don't, you won't get any points, right? And finally here, it's our 9v9k. Actually, if the GBG check is node, then you don't need to write GPG. But if it's yes, then you do need to write it, okay? So that's our first part. As for the second part, you don't need to write it. Definitely don't write it, because if you do, it's kind of a waste of time. So what should we do? We can just copy and paste directly. All right, let's take a look. Okay, we've pasted it over. So what's different? First of all, it's the name. They're different, right? Our file and name are definitely not the same. Right, just change base to stream. As for the description, it's the same thing. Change base to stream. The link is definitely different too. Here, everyone should pay attention to case sensitivity. Be careful with the case in the link. All right, the key is the same. The key is the same. We're using a unified key here. So relatively speaking, if you just copy a version directly, it will save you some time. It'll save you some time and save you from having to write it again. Because if you write it again, it's easy, right? It's also easy to make mistakes. Copying and pasting is definitely foolproof. There's absolutely no way to make a mistake. Now let's take a look at the specific execution results here. And also, first of all, after you finish writing a script, you don't need to check it. Checking is a waste of time. Just run it directly. Just run it directly. So here's the thing. After you run it, right, there are 2 possible types of errors that might occur. I'm not talking about correct execution here. There are 2 possible errors. One type of error is due to formatting issues. And with this kind of problem, it means the script simply can't be executed at all. So you need to fix the formatting first. That's the first type. The second type of error is when your formatting is fine and the script runs, but there are errors in the execution results. Usually this means that some of the parameters you've written inside have issues. So these are the 2 types of errors. If there are no errors, then it usually ends with either a yellow or green status. Now let's take a look at how this works and see if we encounter any errors. Sometimes it's a good thing, and if there aren't any, that's also a good thing, right? If there aren't any, we can go ahead and debug. Actually, it's like this. When you're practicing, you don't need to worry about making mistakes. Making mistakes is a good thing. The more mistakes you make during practice, the fewer you'll make during the exam. If you never encounter any problems during practice, then when you finally take the exam and run into an error, you might not know how to troubleshoot it when you see a new error. Alright, so looking at it now, right, we see green and yellow, right? There's no red, so what does that mean? It means our configuration is fine. But in the end, we still need to verify it. So how do we verify it? We use the Ansible command to install a simple piece of software on all the hosts. What should we install? Let's install FTP, since it's relatively small. You don't have to worry about testing it either, since FTP won't be used later in this exercise anyway. However, you could also install a service that will be used in a later exercise. That's fine too, right? It's all up to you. Here, we'll just use a relatively small FTP service to test whether the installation works. If it succeeds, we'll move on to the next question. If it succeeds, we'll move on to the next question. If it fails, then we'll check the details of our address again. Here, as you can see, everything is displayed in yellow, right? And you can see that it shows installed, right? Installed. Or you can scroll up to check. Here, it's actually already installed, right? It's installed. Since there are many virtual machines, it displays all the information here. So that's all there is to it. Just go through it once. As long as there are no errors, it's fine. Okay, everything is yellow, so there's no problem, right? That means it's already installed, right? If you're still unsure, you can use a command to verify this again. RPM installation, right? As long as our software repository is set up correctly, there shouldn't be any errors during installation. Here we can use the RPM-Q command to check, right? All 5 of our machines, 1 through 5, have it installed. It's done. Alright, that's the content for our second question. The main thing is to configure our software repository, and finally, everyone can use a relatively small piece of software to verify it. It's not recommended to use something large, as installation might take some time. Just use a small piece of software to test it. As long as you can install it, that's the second step, right? Verify the result, and if there's no problem, that's it for this question. Alright, this is our method for configuring the software repository in the second question. Okay, that's all for today. If anyone is interested in the content of our question bank, feel free to discuss it in the comments or message me directly. Either way is fine. Alright, we'll stop here for today. Goodbye, everyone.